Welcome back. He's been called the 2024 candidate Democrats should fear and the ideal candidate for a GOP that no longer exists. Asa Hutchinson is a former U.S. attorney, the Arkansas Republican Party chair, a three-term member of Congress. He served as a House impeachment manager during Bill Clinton's impeachment. President George W. Bush appointed him director of the DEA and later an undersecretary in the Department of Homeland Security. He left office in January after 2 terms as governor of Arkansas. And last week, Hutchinson, who has stood out in the Republican field for his willingness to publicly take on Donald Trump, formally announced his presidential campaign.
We have learned that in times of turmoil, uncertainty, and division, America has always benefited from leaders who challenge us and give us hope. I am running for President of the United States because I know that the best of America is ahead of us.
And the former governor of Arkansas and Republican presidential candidate Asa Hutchinson joins me now. Governor Hutchinson, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Chuck. It's always good to be with you.
You know, I think the single most important speech any candidate for president gives is that announcement speech. I always feel like it's the speech that truly comes from the candidate, that it hasn't had a lot of consultants in it and speechwriters. Over time, that happens. I get that. But that first one, what I found from it is it feels like you were running to lead a party from 10 years ago. And you probably know what I mean by that. Do you really think you have a message for a post-Trump era in an era where Donald Trump still exists?
No, I think the message that I presented is about the future. Whenever you look at the rule of law, which I talked about, the challenge of crime in our cities, the challenge of border security, that's where we simply need to enforce the law, and that is the background that I bring to this campaign. And whenever you look at reducing the size of the federal government and controlling spending, I presented the idea, the plan to reduce state, federal civilian employment by 10%. I can do that because we reduced it by 14% in Arkansas. And so these are specific plans that I present. And it's about the future. It's about the strength of America. It's about our leadership. So, no, it's not about the past. It's about the future. And I think that resonates.
It does seem as if, though, that having the right positions that maybe the Republican Party supports in a poll doesn't seem to translate to votes. I look at your positions, and in theory, it makes a ton of sense to me that you should be able to unite this party around what you're selling. But as you know, they're looking for something else. Donald Trump, whatever it is, it's a fighter. He says what I think. You've heard all the different words. How do you appeal to that voter that actually likes the pugilism?
That's true, and you've got to convince the voters that you're going to fight for them. And whenever you look at my history of fighting against the establishment in Arkansas, but also in Congress and balancing the budget, this is proof of a record of somebody who does fight for them. And whenever you look at growing the economy and the challenge of the high interest rates, high inflation, economy is the #1 issue that will face Americans as we go into 2024. Yeah. And so you talk about these and that you're willing to fight for them. That's what they want, but they also want somebody that can win. So it's about policy, but it's about electability. And we do not want to have a repeat of 2020 with a Trump-Biden race. We want something different that we can win, and that's the case that we make.
Why do you think right now Republican voters think Donald Trump's the best candidate?
Well, really, you look back to the true numbers, which is after the last midterm elections, and his numbers were down. He was responsible for a lot of the failure and growth that we expected and wins in a number of different states. And so his numbers were down. Since then, his numbers have gone up because he's played the victim. People believe he's been picked on because of some prosecutions. I joke in some ways that his campaign manager is Alvin Bragg in New York City. That indictment caused those numbers to go up because they don't believe they're fair. This will settle out over time, and so let's judge it understanding that we're early in the campaign. We've got a lot of room to grow.
It's funny you bring up the legal issues. The seditious conspiracy convictions of the Proud Boys That was a tall task for justice to prove that case. They were able to prove it. You have experience dealing in the Justice Department as a former U.S. attorney. Were you surprised they were successful, and do you think this is a dire outcome for the former president?
Well, they are difficult cases to make. It's a high bar, and they were successful in it. And I think it really reflects the seriousness of the offense of January 6th in undermining our democracy and how seriously the jury considers this, that found them guilty of that. Whenever you look at the impact on the future, Donald Trump has a moral responsibility for what happened on January 6th. The question is whether there is a criminal responsibility, and that's a judgment that the Department of Justice is going to have to make. I believe that we're going to have in America to go a different direction, but it's going to be through the ballot box and not what happens in the courtroom. And so that's what I want to focus on, is persuading Americans that we need to go a different direction.
Are you committing to support the Republican nominee, even if it is Donald Trump?
I expect to be on the debate stage. We're still looking at what is required for that in terms of the pledge. But yes, I'm sure that the candidates that are going to be participating in that believe they're going to be the nominee, and so we're going to support the nominee. But I want to be on that debate stage. I think it's important, and we're working very hard to get there. And let's see. We're not sure whether Donald Trump's going to be there or not. I hope that he will be. I think it's important. But let's see how that develops.
Do you think if he doesn't show up to the debates, it makes it easier for you not to commit to support the nominee?
Well, that reflects the question as to who he will support if he's not the nominee. But he'll drop in the polls, and that's why I think he will ultimately be there. It's important for the American public to hear, particularly the Republican voters, to hear what the candidates say about the future, their ideas for it, and to engage in that debate and defend their position. So that's what the expectation is, and I think everybody has an obligation to participate in that.
A couple of tricky policy issues that are very divisive, or else we'd have resolved them by now. We had a lot more mass shootings again this week, what we saw in Texas at an outlet mall. Let me ask you this. Do all of these recent shootings took place in states that have expanded the rights of gun owners? If we want to tackle the mental health issue, how do you do it without regulating the firearm?
Well, I mean, first of all, we've had mass shootings that occurred in blue states and states that have significant restrictions on firearms. And so they happen across America. And Chuck, this is a serious issue for us. It breaks everyone's heart and causes everybody to think, what can we do to prevent this or to reduce the deaths by violence? And so, as you said, the mental health is a significant part of it that we need to invest in. And you talked earlier about there's, not any bipartisan consensus. And we did find last year a bipartisan consensus to address some issues after the Uvalde shooting in Texas. And I applaud Senator Cornyn for his leadership on that. So we just have to continue to look at what makes a difference, what fits within our constitutional framework. And right now there is the consensus on addressing the mental health crisis we have in America, particularly as it came out of the pandemic.
Let me ask you this about the current crisis of confidence at the Supreme Court. Back in the late 90s when you were in Congress, you led a bipartisan effort. There was a rebuke, an ethics investigation of then Speaker Newt Gingrich. And you led a bipartisan effort. Hey, this is what was concluded, and it was a bipartisan action. He had to pay a pretty hefty fine. But it was accepted by the public because it was bipartisan. Do we need that here with the Supreme Court? It feels like there isn't an accepting of the premise that the court has an ethical problem right now.
Well, this is an important issue, and whenever you look at the confidence of the Supreme Court, which is critical to operation of our democracy, that confidence level is somewhat down. But if you look back in history, You had during the Warren Court, they had a controversial decision, Brown versus Board of Education. And for a long time, the court was under extraordinary criticism. Their confidence level was diminished. That has been built back up over time. You've had a controversial decision, and history is repeating itself. You've got, in this case, the Democrats undermining the court, first of all, by wanting to pack it more than 9, which has been our historic number. And then secondly, these allegations against Justice Thomas. The court needs to be transparent, first of all. They need to be clear on what their reporting rules are. They need to review those to make sure they're very similar to the other public officials and branches of government, which has broad reporting requirements. Clearly have not been sufficient. They've changed those. Right. But I think they need to step just simply in terms of their transparency so the American people understand what the rules are and what is required and is similar to other public officials.
Sounds like you think Chief Justice Roberts, you think he needs to come out and publicly state what you just said?
Well, sure. I think there needs to be a clear set of rules and there needs to be openness about it so that everybody knows what the rules are. Those are important. Every public official has to follow those. They can set those. They should set those versus the Congress of the United States because they are a separate branch of government.
Right. Governor Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, presidential candidate, just announced this week. Appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective, and stay safe on the trail, sir. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Chuck. Good to be with you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.